Hi folks, it's Friday, and yeah, it should be a good one today. We've got 3 stories to go through, 3 hobby nightmares to read. They've been sent into the email address that is down below. If you like what I do, the subscribe button is down below, the Patreon button is also down below, so jump on in. It's not going to be a super long one today, because it's been a really long week, and I'm flagging like hell. I'm really ready for the bank holiday weekend, but as anybody who is in the UK knows, the bank holiday weekends, those are the weekends when the rain comes. So hopefully the rain stays away and we have quite a nice weekend ahead of us, but we will see. So, George is first, and he says, "Hello, Mr. Exile. If you would like to call me George for the sake of anonymity, that'd be great." Well, there we go. I'm 20 years old, living around Southampton, the literal bin of the south. Now, I don't know about that, mate. I don't know about that. I've been to Portsmouth. So I wouldn't say Southampton is the bin of the south. Southampton in certain areas can actually be quite nice. It's Hampshire, right? Isn't Southampton in Hampshire? I swear it is. I think, yeah, it's in Hampshire. So yeah, it is quite nice. It is quite a nice little area, it's Hampshire. In fact, some of the most expensive real estate in the UK is in Hampshire. Now, I'm not saying that Southampton is the be all end all of Hampshire, because it's not. But on the south coast, it's not a bad city. It's quite a nice place. Similar to Liverpool in many ways. Anyway. And also, I'm a writer with a couple of plays under my belt. Good, you're a writer of plays. I like it. Anyway, first of all, thanks for all the videos and your ability to be heartfelt with everybody. No worries, man. No matter the nightmare, big or small, you always give a genuinely... Okay, yeah, that's it. I really admire as an emotionally repressed southerner. Do you know what? Here's the thing. There's a thing about people from that part of the world. I often, whenever I speak to people from Southampton and Portsmouth and places like that, because I do through football, they always say, they find more affinity with northerners than they do with other southerners, because they're seen as northern towns that have been plucked out of the north and grafted onto the south. The attitudes there are very northern, very matter-of-fact, very working class, very proud of where they come from. And it's that kind of a thing, and it doesn't quite gel with the rest of the south, or most of the south anyway. Especially in Hampshire, Jesus Christ, like Hampshire's a rich place, but with the gushing out of the way, got a hobby story for you about how Warhammer subtly pulled me from the brink. It gets better, boys, and also I am in need of some advice. Okay, so. I've been overhauling my room for the past couple of weeks. Finally having had enough of the sick orange walls and snot green skirting. Both are colours my brother kindly pointed out had, and I quote, come out of my body at some point, so I thought it was time for a change. Repainting obviously meant packing up all of my Warhammer and various other bits. Whilst I was packing, I stumbled into my second army, my Death Watch Space Marines. About 5 years old, lots of it having seen the light of day for 3. Sorry, the army's about 5 years old. Okay, lots of it not having seen the light of day for 3 of those years, and some truly diabolical painting. They are just taking up valuable storage space more than anything else. I also found some Necrons, my first love, and even a couple of squads of the now old guard kit. The logical thing would have been to sell it or even chuck it. But here's where I need some of your advice. I am incredibly emotionally tied to them, and I'm not sure it's in the healthiest way. Okay, alright. You're in love with them, are you? See, Warhammer has been in the background for most of my teenage years, and the happiest and darkest times of my life so far. Whilst painting my Death Watch and Necrons, I was in year 10 or 11 in school, about to go into college, and the world smelled of roses. I had my first girlfriend, a relationship that lasted a year and a half. Oh my god. I had amazing friends, I had good grades and a happy home. However, all that changed very quickly going into college. My girlfriend broke up with me. Most of my friends went to a different college on the other side of the country. COVID hit, and my family and I were subject to lockdowns, trapped within an emotional and abusive and physical abuser, someone we will struggle with, albeit less, something we would struggle with, albeit less so. Quite a few sleepless nights in the lockdowns of fighting, often physical and sometimes being left with bruises, shouting, breakdowns, and one time losing total faith in humanity when the Samaritans failed to pick up the phone for one of my parents when they were at the limit of what any human could be pushed to by one of their own children. Quite a dramatic shift, I know. Wow. Suddenly, the Death Watcher Necron army became a nostalgic representation of a much happier time of my life. Even the boxes on the shelf would bring an ache to my stomach as I remembered how I once felt painting those models. Yeah, that's something that people don't often get, you know? Like, how Warhammer can sometimes really represent a really shining time in your life. Like, the reason why I couldn't get back to the hobby for quite a while after getting back from the States, despite my channel being dedicated to Hobby Nightmares and things, was simply because of the fact that the last time I did 40k in a big way, I was in a much better time, right? I was in a time when everything in my life was going great guns, everything was going amazingly well, and then everything fell apart in a really, really, really cruel way. I just got ripped away from me, essentially. And I had to come home and face the music, essentially. I came home, moved in with my grandpa, it wasn't great, you know, and times were difficult, and, you know, I couldn't face going back to Warhammer. So when I came back here, I planned to make the channel a more Warhammer-focused channel when my sense of self-worth and my mental health was being repaired. But for the first few months, I was just doing streams and normal stuff on the channel. I wasn't really doing very much, you know. It was only towards the winter of 2021 when I really started to hit the ground running and saying, right, okay, I'm going to start doing hobby content. And since I started doing hobby content, the channel picked up, and with that, you know, my mental health started to pick up, and in the summer of 2022, things really started to hit into gear, and I started getting, you know, work offers and freelance work with teaching, and all of a sudden I'm earning good money, and I'm doing okay, and my life's being rebuilt, and then only then did I start going back to the actual modelling side of the hobby. You know, I would talk about it for ages, but only then did I actually start picking up models and painting and building again. So yeah, it takes a long time. It takes a long time to get out your system. Especially because the hobby is such an intrinsic thing. It's something that's totally, totally unique to you. So yeah, how you feel about it is all yours, and sometimes when that's been tainted a little bit, it's really hard to come back to it. It was the same when I left Games Workshop. I didn't come back to the hobby for years. In fact, I was kind of broken by leaving Games Workshop. Like I was really, really, really done with it, done with the hobby, you know. Then I had a really bad experience with a relationship in London, and then came back up north, and you know, it was one of those times where I just couldn't fathom doing the hobby again. And then it was my relationship that pulled me to America that got me back into the hobby. That repaired me, and then that went away, and that shattered it for me. And then now I've rebuilt myself again. I'm now in a place in my own life, and my God, I didn't think I'd talk this openly about myself and such in a normal hobby nightmare. But I'm now at a place in my life where nobody will ever rip this hobby away from me again, and nobody will ever, you know, define my life apart from me and my daughter, apart from her, you know. But nobody will ever define my life apart from me. You know, I'm in charge of my own happiness. I'm in charge of what I like and what I want to do. And you know what? Even people will say to me, it's not going to work with women though. It does. Because people respect strength of character. If you've got a strength of character that says, hey, you know, I don't need you. I've got my own life. I've got my own happiness. You are the garnish on my burger. You are not the burger. I'm the burger. I built the burger. I will enjoy the burger. You are the garnish. But I could have my burger without the garnish. No problem, right? You know? There have been a few people since I've been back from America where I could have gotten into a relationship with them by pretending to be something that I'm not, quite easily. A few of you will know what I mean there, right? I could have easily gotten into a relationship with them by just being by being fake and kowtowing and being, you know, oh, you're so great, you're so wonderful. But, you know, I felt a lot better because I was honest enough to say, you know what, this isn't working for me. Or, you know what, that behaviour I don't like. And if you can't handle that, then leave. And a few of them do. You know, they go, okay, I'm leaving. Okay, fine. you know, but I'm in a much better, stronger place for that than if I just carried it along until they finally, you know, decided it wasn't working. But anyway, moving on. Hopefully you took a bit of stuff out of that if you're all listening to this. Always be the centre of your own happiness. That's got to be the A1 thing to a stoic, happy life. You need to be the centre of your own fulfilment. That's what you need to be. Not easy, but you know it will work in the end. Trust me. All right. All of this high drama left me very shaken. Go figure. And I didn't feel exactly happy for the next 2 or 3 years. I love that phrase. I didn't feel exactly happy. He's not saying he was depressed or like about to jump off a roof or something, but there was something missing. Do you know what I mean? It's like like his heart was like a jigsaw, with like a few bits missing or one bit missing. Like I'm supposed to feel ecstatically happy and content here, but I don't exactly feel happy, and that can drive you mad. You're not depressed, you're not upset, you're just not as happy as you should be. And it's annoying you, because you know you should be cock-a-hoop right now, right? Anyway. This would culminate in a drinking problem and a very dark place mentally. Yeah, you're trying to fill that void, mate. You're trying to fill the void. You're trying to fill that piece of the jigsaw that's not there. But this is where Warhammer pulled through for me. It often saved me from nights of drinking myself under the desk, quite literally, and provided a tiny little island in the river of shit that was my brain and home at the time. I'd sit and paint for hours, and I genuinely don't know if I'd be here if not for the crutch of my salamanders to lean on over this time. So you started a salamanders force, nice. That if you want a hug, the salamanders is the chapter to go with, let's be honest. They are a very hopeful chapter, and some people need that. I remember one time I came home from work around 3 PM, having done a busy morning shift at my pub. Yes, I know working in a pub with a drinking problem, how very sensible and yet stereotypical, yeah, I know. And came home in a particularly low mental state, so I decided I'd fall back on the tired and tested method of getting shit-faced so I couldn't think in a straight line, let alone walk, okay? However, I thought I'd stick a David Bowie album on and finish up painting a Salamander's Tactical Marine before the binge started. I never painted drunk. This was an unconscious rule I had made for myself. I always waited to paint to the best of my ability. Okay. About 5 albums later, my Marine was finished and not a drop of alcohol had touched my lips in that time. I went to bed pretty sober for the first time in a week that night, having fully distracted myself with some painting. While perhaps it didn't register at the time how significant painting that model was for me, I definitely now see how significant Warhammer was to keep my head just above the water, or the desk. There's something to be said for having a small, delicate model to concentrate all of your attention on during dire times. So well done Games Workshop, you had a large hand in saving my life, if not my wallet, and I became a pretty decent painter out of all of it, and had some absolutely fantastic material to use in my plays, so maybe all the torment was well worth it. I did manage to snap out of this, cut down on the drink and focus on writing and acting, and can say with a lot of pride, I'm genuinely happy for the first time since then. I'm heading off to drama school this autumn, and I am in the process of putting on one of my plays to a paying audience this summer. To top it off, I've managed to bag a drop-dead gorgeous goth woman who plays Skitarii, and we're both moving in together next year. Jesus Christ, dude, you really turned it around. I swear to God, the sexiest words I've ever heard were, "So, how can I start Warhammer? Guys, I promise it does get better." So, after all that, the advice I need is, what do I do with my Death Watch and other bits and pieces? There's no real logical reason to keep them. I've moved on in my hobbying and in my life, and so they only sit in a case or gather dust on a shelf, taking up precious little space that I have. But they hold such an emotional weight for a happier, simpler time that I struggle to move them on. I will also point out, I'm a real nostalgic bugger. I think, a symptom of my world imploding rather quickly, I tended to grab hold of the past even tighter than anyone has any sane sense to do. It even got to the point I was romanticising my drinking and sadness, fooling myself I was happier than I am now. I feel like these models are almost a physical representation of this problem, and letting go might be good for me. But then I worry I'll miss them, and those happier times even more if they do get moved on. So, what should I do? Should I move them on? Keep them? Go to therapy? I really don't know. Some northern advice would be really much appreciated. Cheers, George. So, I would say, mate, it's time to let them go. I think it's time to let them go. I think you've gotten your life onto an even keel enough where they've done their job. You know? They've done their job. What you need to do is you need to set them all out somewhere nice, right? Set them all out. Take some photographs of them, so they're there for posterity, right? Box them up, and go and find a gamer, somebody in the hobby, who needs a pick me up. Essentially, the best place to do that is the Discord. Head onto the Discord. Say to anybody, is anybody having a bad time? You know, or things like that. Here is an army for you. Or if you want to get into Death Watch, here's an army for you. If they're really badly painted, then it might be time to just put them in a box and leave them. Yeah, put them in a box and leave them somewhere. Take them with you, put them in a box, and forget about it, because I think they've done their job now. It's time to retire them. It's time to go and do your own thing. Your life is now on an upwards trajectory. You've put it on that path. And so you are now on the cusp of doing something great, okay? Looking backwards never really helps you do that. They can always be a representation of that time in your life, as a representation that you got over that time in your life, But there does come a time when it's time to move on. It's time to say goodbye, right? And it's sad, it's not great, but you take some photographs of them and try and flog them on. And try and flog them on to somebody who will actually do them good. Don't charge for them, give them away for free, but make sure that you're doing somebody some good when you're giving them away. And if you can't do somebody good when you're giving them away, if it's just somebody who's like, oh yeah, I'll take them, then, maybe hold on to them, because they mean more to you than they do to them, right? So, go on the Discord, try and strip them down if you can, of the paint. Go on the Discord, ask around. There will be somebody there who's struggling, I'm telling you now, who will jump at some free Death Watch. It'll be like the kick in the arse that they need to start turning this shit around, right? Trust me. Pay it forward. Do some good. That's my advice. But yeah, move on. Move on. It is time to move on. Broxer Dave says, hey North, just a quick one about self-righteous people, okay? I have a friend who is a Space Wolf player. A story about self-righteous people involves a Space Wolf player. Who would have thought? I have a friend who is a Space Wolf player who, when the return of Magnus happened at the end of 7th edition, insisted it was the biggest thing to ever happen in the lore, and that the wolves kicked his arse off of Fenris. Now, not only was this not the case in the lore, he would go on about it for ages. Like every game we played, he would be talking about it, and when Gilliman finally came back at the start of 8th edition, and the end of 7th, he was determined to tell us it was all cringe, and not as big as Magnus coming back anyway. Oh my god. This guy, Steve, is also as into wrestling as I am. Okay. I want every wrestling promotion in the world to do well. But Steve is an avid AEW fan. If listeners don't know who they are, I'm sure North can fill you in. Okay, sure, I will. So, for the longest time in professional wrestling, the WWE, or WWF as they were known, they ran the show. They were literally the only game in town. If you wanted to watch wrestling, and it was American, or, English stuff, you had to watch WWE, right? Which is fine if WWE is any good. And for years, decades even, it wasn't. It was a load of shite. In fact, it was cringe. It was really, really, really hard to watch at times, because it was being written by Vince McMahon, who was essentially a doddering old man who literally didn't know how to write stories anymore. Like, it was literally all over the place. So, anyway, moving forwards. A bunch of guys from Japan and a bunch of other guys from WWE who had left got together and formed their own company called All Elite Wrestling, AEW, to be a competitor to the WWE in the US. This was great for the first year because people who were watching it weren't really self-righteous. They were just wanting to watch it for the sake of watching decent wrestling that was not WWE, right? I was one of them. And then you had the people with an axe to grind and were the constant victims latched onto AEW like it was the biggest thing ever, and they were now forcing you to like it. They were saying you must like this. If you don't like this, then you're a traitor to the cause, and you must be some WWE mark or fan, and like it was a dirty word. When a lot of us actually, we just want wrestling to succeed, and we want everybody to do well, because that means more of the boys are getting paid by more companies, which is great. If you want to be a wrestler now, you don't have to just hope to God that there is a WWE scout watching you. There could be 20 scouts from 20 different really successful promotions watching you, and you can go and earn a living as a wrestler. That's what we want, right? We want everybody to be able to do that. If you're a real wrestling fan, that's what you think, right? A lot of the AEW fan base now are rabid, inclusionists. Like, everybody's welcome here, which is fine. But then they're like, you cannot like anything WWE does, or you're some sort of mark, and everything AEW does is amazing. And here's the thing, right? They've just announced that they're going to do a Wembley show, right? A Wembley show. So immediately, the AEW fans started saying, why can't everybody be happy for us that we're doing a Wembley show? A show at Wembley, blah, blah, blah. Nobody was complaining, though. Nobody was complaining. They're strawmanning. This is what they do. They strawman. And then this is what I've noticed people on the far right and far left will do this as well. They will strawman. They will hold something up and they'll say, why can't everyone leave us alone? It's like, everybody is leaving you alone. No one fucking cares. No one cares, right? No one gives a shit about you. Everybody's leaving you alone. No one is victimizing you. You're a twat, right? That's exactly what they're like. For a big section of the audience right now, from what I come across, I'm involved in a lot of wrestling groups on Facebook, using my real name, and I'm on a load of things like that. And oh my god, the rabidness of these people. Don't get me wrong, some WWE people want to tear down AEW for some bizarre reason, but most of the time, AEW fans will cry foul even when there's nothing there to cry foul about, and it really irks me. But anyway, moving on. So I filled you in. You now know who they are. Anyway, anything this company does that is positive, he is screaming at us about. He actively gets offended when we don't congratulate his favourite company for doing something good. Exactly, yeah, exactly. He carries this into everything to do with the hobby. I have no idea what to do with this guy, as he genuinely is a diamond. Steve does a lot for charity and is genuinely a good bloke. This is just a part of his personality that I cannot wash with, and it's starting to really grate on me to the point I've had to take a break from 40k games mid-game just to walk somewhere else in the store to get away from his constant soapboxing. What should I do? Brox. Okay, so soapboxing is a really good way to put it, yeah. These are people getting on their soapbox all the time, and literally they won't let up. So here you go, dude. I'm going to tell you what to do. First of all, breaking up with a guy friend, is much more difficult than breaking up with a woman. It's much more awkward, right? But sometimes you need to give somebody an honest truth of honesty, a dose of honesty, right? An honest dose. And to do that, the next time he does this, I would just say, not in front of people if you can help it, I would say, listen dude, this is how I'm feeling right now. This is really fucking annoying. And I've tried to not say anything, because I've tried to, hopefully that you'd get out of this phase where you're doing this, but I'm now sensing this is just who you are, and it's really annoying me. So I don't know whether I need to take a step away from the group, because you're in it, or whether you can control your behaviour. But these are the things that aren't cool. And list them. Say, look, these are the things that aren't cool. Right? You always have to be right. You always are ramming this stuff down our throats. It's kind of like having a somebody who's fallen in with some sort of rabid political ideology who now needs to bring it into every conversation he has. Kind of similar with the Space Wolf things. Steve seems to me like the kind of a decent guy, but who latches onto things that he's passionate about and rides them till they're dead, and then he moves on to the next thing, right? So you need to just come up and say that it bothers you, man. You need to be honest with him. Just be honest with him. Look, say, listen, this bothers me, and you know, I really think you're a diamond of a bloke. I really think you're awesome. It's just this I can't really truck with, mate. I'm really sorry. That's just how it is. Be honest with him. If he's that much of a diamond of a bloke, he will understand, and at least he will try and curb his behaviour. And if he doesn't want to curb his behaviour, then move on. Then move on. At least you've given him a chance. Say to him, look, normally I would just walk away from somebody who exhibits your behaviours, mate, but you're such a cool bloke. I just wanted to just tell you and see what you do with it, see what you do with the info. And you know what? You never know. You might be like, oh, shit, yeah. You might examine his behaviour. You don't know. Give the guy a chance to be good. That's my advice. Give the guy a chance. If he's that much of a diamond as you say he is, give him a chance. Let him prove it. Alright. Matt says, Hi North. My hobby nightmare is recent and ongoing. To give some context, I am a man in my mid-30s, and I've been into the hobby on and off since 3rd edition. Oh, one of the best editions, 3rd edition. Chef kiss. At school, I used to play with a group of friends who were and are still my best friends. But life, family, and other hobbies... life, family, and other hobbies. That's such a 40k player way to look at your family. Life, family, and other hobbies have made us drift apart hobby-wise over time. I got back into the hobby in 8th edition and attend a gaming club on a semi-regular basis. One other friend, Greg, paints regularly, as well, but Paul and Tom, my other friends, are not really into the hobby. When Blackstone Fortress was released, I purchased it, and using Midwinter Minis, excellent series, managed to paint it all up. I recommend a channel for people worried about painting. Okay. I thought it would be a great way to re-engage with my childhood mates and maybe bring them back into the hobby. Well, it has not really worked out like that, unfortunately, and now I am questioning whether one of my friends is someone I enjoy spending time with. Okay, we're hitting on a theme for our hobby nightmares this week. Blackstone Fortress is a fun game with some roleplay elements, if you want them, and Greg, Tom and myself like to play as a team, trying to play as thematically as possible. Paul, however, is a play-to-win kind of guy. It does not help that he plays as the Eldar character, who can do magical space Jesus bullshit like warp through walls and reroll everything at all times. However, Paul also cheats when playing, using the wrong dice to give him advantage and forgetting how many of his allocated activations he has used, and generally not being a team player, hoovering up treasure and loot like a knife-eared prick. Maybe he is playing in character after all. We are all too polite to call him out, and I don't want to make it awkward, but I cannot for the life of me understand why somebody would cheat in a game like this. Yeah, it's not like he can win the game. Do you have any suggestions as how to broach this with him? Many thanks, Matt. Okay. There's two ways you can do it. The first way, well, there's three ways you can do it. The first is to just carry on the way you are, which I don't think is a very good thing to do, so we'll move on from that one. The second is to call him out in-game. And to say, look, dude... Well, not look, dude, but just say to him, I don't think that's right. I don't think that rule is right. Oh, that's the wrong dice, dude. Sorry, that's the wrong dice you're using there. Or I don't think that rule is right. Okay, if they're basically cheating, and they keep doing it, there's nothing wrong, and it's changing the game. There's nothing wrong with just saying, look, dude, I don't think that's right there. I don't think that's correct. Or look, man, like that's the wrong dice. That's literally the wrong dice. Can you use the right dice? But do it in a nice way. Say, oh man, that's the wrong dice. Yeah, no worries. Oh, I don't think that rule works that way. Let me just read it up. Oh, no, it doesn't work that way. It works this way, right? In a nice way, in a polite way. Pick up on his, pick up on his shit. Like, make sure that he knows, you know, what he's doing isn't right. Normally, when somebody is soft cheating, as soon as they're caught in that way a few times, they will self-correct and stop doing it, right? Normally. And if he doesn't self-correct and stop doing it, at least everybody else at the table now knows what he's up to, and is like, dude, play the game properly or don't play at all, right? That's number one. That's the gatekeeping one. That's the gatekeeping issue, right? You can do it that way. Or, you can switch it around like we did with Steve before, where you sit down and say, away from the table, and say, listen, man, I've noticed these few behaviours, not totally on board with them, do you mind changing them so we can have fun? Now, problem there is that Blackstone Fortress isn't such an important, huge game that you play, you know what I mean, on a week-by-week basis. It's something that you could play once or twice. So I'm thinking that he might just think you're being a bit of a douche if you do that, so it might be worth your while doing it in the game to try and correct his behaviour in the game and call out his behaviour as you're going. I don't know whether anyone else who's watching this has had that kind of experience with somebody playing 40k or Blackstone Fortress or D&D or whatever. What do you usually do? Because what I usually do is I correct their behaviour at the table. And I'll usually sit there and say, I don't think that rule works that way. And I'll only do it if it's changing the game. Right? If it's changing the game completely, then I will call them out on it, right? If it's something that they're just getting wrong but doesn't really change anything, I don't bother. You know, I just don't bother. But if it's a game changer and I think they're getting it wrong on purpose, that's when I start to call it and say, look, man, you know. And that can only rely on intuition to do that, you know. But anyway, let me know how it goes. And yeah, carry on. Love you all a long time. I will speak to you probably either over the weekend or it will be on Monday now. We'll be doing some more 10th edition videos. I love you all. I will speak to you then. Have a wonderful rest of your day. I sincerely hope you have a lovely bank holiday weekend if you're in the UK. And if you're not, then, you know, sucks to be you. We have Monday off. Alright, see you later. Love you all. Bye now. Bye.